Hey, this is Matt, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to get started in Reaper and get things set up right out of the gate. So we're going to go down to Reaper here. This is Reaper 64. I'm working in version 6 right now. I just updated it. If you are using Mac Catalina, you need to make sure you get the Catalina version. Otherwise there'll be some issues with the microphone. In this day and age, most people are going to be using the 64-bit version as opposed to 32. So I'm going to click on this. You guys are going to be using the demo mode probably right out of the gate, the 60-day demo. So you'll get a little dialog box here that'll ask you if you want to continue to demo, and you just hit OK. So anyway, this is our arrange window. Looks a lot like Audacity. This is where the audio files are going to be arranged. There is a transport in the middle here with play, record, stop, rewind, etc., etc. And then there's a mixer that's showing down in the bottom. And this is just the master output on the bottom left. As we add more tracks, you'll see other tracks in here. And there are some other things in the upper right-hand corner right out of the gate. So one thing that I would do is I would deselect this snap tool. It looks like a magnet. If you have this selected, your audio is only going to map to these little hash marks here. In the arrange window, if you turn this off, then you can move anything seamlessly. And then I would just leave everything at the default here. And then I'm actually going to create some tracks. Notice that there aren't any tracks here. So you can go to track and up at the top, insert new track. There's a key command for it over to the right there. On a Mac, it's Command T. I'm going to create a couple so you can see what it looks like here. Let's do 5. Okay, notice each time I created one, it shows up down in the mixer here. And there are volume sliders and places up at the top for effects. This little knobby here is the pan button. So I'm sure people want to start recording right out of the gate. So if you arm a track, you click on this red button and then hit record. Hi, this is Matt. So it's going to ask you to save that. I'm actually going to delete this right now. Boop, and disarm my track, because where was that going to save that to? Well, it doesn't know yet. So before you do anything, as in before you do anything, what you need to do is do a save project as, and create a new folder on, I'm going to do it on my desktop here, create new folder. I'm going to call this McLean test, and create, and then I'm going to double click on that. And I'm going to call this Reaper project the same thing, McLean test. And what that is going to do is create a place for all of your audio files to go. So the other critical thing is you want to have this box selected, copy all media into the project directory. And the reason why is on future save as that you do, it will copy anything in. So you can drag and drop audio into Reaper, but it won't put it in your project folder until you do a save as at the end of your session and have this selected. In the past, I've recommended doing this create subdirectory for project, but a lot of times people keep this selected every time they do a save as. And within their project folder, they'll get a series of folders within folders within folders, like the Matryoshka doll effect. Let's put everything right on the surface here. And I'm just going to hit save. And click in here, you'll see that there's a Reaper project. Perfect. Let's go back. I'm going to arm my track and do that little record again. Hello, this is Matt. It's going to ask to name it. Look at this number. That's going to be really confusing. So if you're recording Foley or your voiceover stuff, I would name it what you said in the line. Hello, this is Matt. And I'm going to hit save. And then save all. Go into our project folder, and sure enough, there it is. Otherwise, you're going to have like 100 different numbered WAV files, and things will be super duper complicated. Okay, so notice that you get this error message here where it says offline. When you click back into Reaper off the desktop, that will go away and you'll see the audio back in here. So, oh yeah, another thing is if you're on a laptop and you try to do what I just did there, you might encounter a problem with the playback. And the other thing you're going to want to do is go in here up to the top. And this tells you what your project sample rate is. And here I'm at 48 kilohertz, 24-bit. But you need to go into the first thing, audio device settings, and make sure that you have the right audio device selected. I'm using that little Fifine lapel mic, which has a headphone out and a microphone. If you select that, you can play and listen to audio at the same time. But if you're just on a laptop, it will be either built-in microphone or output. And so you might be able to record audio but not play it back, or vice versa. And the reason why they do that is usually on a laptop, you have your mic and the speaker in the same spot, and it'll feed back like crazy if you try to record and monitor at the same time. So I'm going to hit alrighty then. So I have the right sound card here. Oh, let's go back up there and then go to media settings, the second one down. You can go to project settings, and you might want to make sure that your sample rate is set to, if you're working with video, usually it's at 48 kilohertz. And if you're in standard music audio land, it'd be 44.1 or maybe double that. But let's go back to 48 and then I'm gonna hit OK. So we're kind of ready to go here. Let me show you a couple other things. Go to the effects box in your master track right here. So it says effects. If you click on that, you'll get a list of all sorts of cool effects that come with Reaper. The first thing I would do is go to Kakos, that's the company that makes Reaper, and add a recomp. It's the second one down here, and add it. And why are we doing this? What we're going to do is add what they call bus compression. And what is bus compression? It is compression that adds a layer of very thin fairy dust to your mix, and it sort of glues everything together so sounds don't step on each other. There's one preset in here. If you go to presets, master bus glue, just go with that. And you'll see the ratio here is 1.531 to 1. It's not doing a whole bunch of compression, but it's subtle and it's great. So add that. And then if you go to add, we're going to add one more really critical thing. In other tutorials, I've mentioned a VST plugin, which is the W1. It's a replica of a Waves limiter. You can use that if you install it and get it to work. That's great. But the JS master limiter, where is that? Right here, is equally great. I would add that and make sure the threshold set around, I don't know, negative 3 dB. I just go with the default here. If you bring this slider further to the left, it'll make your overall loudness appear to be louder, but it'll add distortion and additional compression. But this is just really controlling the peaks, and the big thing it does is your output will never be clipped. So I'm going to close that box, and I'm going to leave those on. I know some pro mixers, engineers, they'll actually do that bus compression and leave it on until the end of the project, and they'll take it off before they ship it off to the mastering house. Some people even leave a little bit on there before they ship it off and don't tell anybody. But that's a little bit of fairy dust, and that will make your stuff be awesome here. So the the other critical thing here is how do you navigate up and down if you have multiple tracks? So I'm going to actually go down. I'm going to create some more tracks. So now I have a whole bunch, I don't know, 10 tracks. Well, if you hover over this left track alley and then use the control wheel on your mouse, or I'm using the multi-touch function and just with 2 fingers on a Mac and scrolling up and down. This is how you can get up and down between all of your tracks. There's a handle over here on the right-hand side that you can use to do that. If you do that same up and down motion while you're over the arrange window, it'll actually zoom in and out. And you can zoom in and out with these plus and minus buttons too. So another thing to keep your tracks organized is a lot of people like to color their tracks. You might get sick of looking at gray. You can go to track color, go to set tracks to custom color, and then you can just pick a color from this palette. Here's a cool one. Hit OK. Now I got chartreuse. And another preset that I recommend setting is under options here, where you can change this little knob in this track box to the volume to be a slider as opposed to this circular knob. I hate this knob. Go to options. Go way down to the bottom, layouts, track panel, and you're going to pick B down at the bottom at 200% DPI. Not sure what that means, but we're going to click it. And notice that now we have these cool sliders. Woo, so much better. And everything else is essentially the same. You can minimize it by dragging right below this dialog box. You can make your audio really big by pulling it down. So this is a good way to keep things organized. Let me show you another really cool thing. I'm actually going to drag this audio down here. In some of my other tutorials, I do this foldering technique, but I think it's good to learn it right out of the gate. Over on the left, they've moved it. It used to be over here on the right. If you click on this folder, it turns to a plus sign, and you can cycle through some options. If I click on it, it'll move everything below it into a subfolder. And if you click on any of these in the subfolder, it will cycle through some options. So you can create folders within folders within folders. Click it again, and it'll bump it out. Why would this be important? Well, let's say you have a character and you're doing some video sync and you're using some Foley, and maybe you have two different layers of footsteps, and you have footsteps here and you have footsteps here for that one character track. And let's say you want to automate the volume for all of the footsteps globally just for the footsteps. Well, what you can do is put all your footsteps in these two subfolders and then click on this, your top track, and then I'm going to click V. This is an awesome key command. You can start painting in volume curves and moving your little dots. This is sort of like the envelope tool in Audacity. But what this will do is control the volume globally for everything within this, your subfolder. And you can actually paint in volume curves within that subfolder. So you can have volume curves acting on volume curves, which gets really crazy, but for control freaks like me, gives you pretty much infinite control over your project. And I'm just going to close that up. So anyway, there you go. That's a good way to get started. Oh yeah, here's one last thing. Is in the transport, where are you in the project? Well, if you hit play, your time marker is this number here. These are measures. So it thinks you might be working in a music project. You might be. And this is measure 2, beat 2. But what I want to do is I want to see my clock all the time. So you can go to view and do big clock. This will pull up a clock. Unfortunately, it shows the measures and beats right out of the gate. So what you have to do is right-click it on the Mac thing. I think you hold down 2 fingers and click, and then it'll give you some options. So you can go to minutes and seconds. There we go. 2 seconds, 2.544 seconds. What are some other really quick things? Oh, solo and mute. So if you want to mute a track, you can hit the M button, mutes it. Solo will solo it out. And spacebar, just like pretty much any DAW, will hit play. And you should be off to the races. You can have a fun, organized, color-coded project. Oh yeah, one last thought to leave you with, which was one of the first ones. At the end of any session, you always go back to File and do Save File As. So at the end of your session, go to File, Save As. And the reason why, I'm just going to go into some test sounds that I have for another tutorial. And I'm going to drag some sounds in here. Close this. So now I've got some other sounds in here. And I'm going to hit just regular old save and go into my project. Well, what in the world? It didn't wrap those sounds in. They're in this other folder here. Well, fine if you're on your own computer, but if you're submitting work, you need to have everything within a single project folder. So what you do is you go File, Save Project As, make sure this dialog box is selected, copy all media into the project directory, hit Save, and let's go in here. There we go. All these other audio pieces are in here. Pretty cool. And that little message you got there, there's another way that you can save too, is save a new version of this project. And then if you do that, you go in here, it'll actually start naming things like McLean Test version 1. And I'll do that again. Boop. New version of the project. Let's go back in here. So this is kind of cool because it doesn't add multiple copies of all of your audio in here, but you have multiple versions of your project with the timestamp. So this is a good way to keep track of your work. Let's say you spend a day doing a bunch of stuff you don't want to keep. Well, you can go back to a previous version and start working from there. All right. So good luck and have fun in Reaper. It's a great program. Things sound great. It's pretty seamless. Don't get lost in all the options. Stick to the ones I've showed you here.